Slide text. Title: 24-25 Determination Status Timelines. Subtitle: August 2024.
I just wanted to begin by letting everyone know that we're going to be recording this session today. So this will be available for those of you who want to go back and take another listen. We'll also be sharing some more information following this session as well through document form. So be on the lookout for more.
Slide text. Title: SPED Strategies. Text: We work to transform how students with disabilities experience school every day by ensuring leaders and educators across the nation have the tools and resources they need to effectively meet needs and prepare all learners to be successful in life after high school.
My name is Teresa Nichols, and I work for SPED Strategies. As many of you might know from the previous webinar, our focus groups and office hours back in May, SPED Strategies is partnering with DESE to provide more support and technical assistance to districts this year based on their determination status. So we shared a little bit about these supports during our conversation in the spring, but we want to take this time today to walk through that in more detail.
Slide text. Title: Agenda and Objectives. List of agenda items. Welcome and opening. Determination statuses. Timeline for NI districts. Timeline for NA districts. Next steps. List of objectives. Understand the supports available to your district. Understand the requirements expected of your district.
So you'll see the main objectives for our time today on the right side of your screen. We have two main goals for today. First, we want to ensure that you understand all the support and technical assistance that you'll have available to you this year based on your determination status. And then second, that you know what requirements and deliverables are expected of your district and on what timeline. So with these goals in mind, our agenda is pretty straightforward. We're just going to take a few minutes to ground ourselves in the rubric itself, the determinations rubric, and then we'll spend the bulk of our time walking through a high-level timeline of the supports, the requirements, and the deliverables for the 24-25 school year.
Slide text. Title: LEA determination statuses.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the next portion of our session. So as we said, we're going to be working over the next few years to provide technical assistance and supports to districts based on their status. That means that our team will be providing a variety of resources like trainings, root cause analysis, improvement plan consultation, etc., to districts across the state. But before we dig in, we want to briefly review the process for making LEA determinations.
Slide text. Title: Determination Status Rubric. Format: table with 2 rows, criteria and weight, and 2 columns, performance and compliance. Performance criteria includes annual dropout rate, 5-year cohort graduation rate, SPP/APR indicator 3, SPP/APR indicators 5 and 6. Compliance criteria include SPP/APR indicators 4B, 9, and 10. SPP/APR indicators 11, 12, and 13. Indication of non-compliance number of findings, PSM/PRS. And timely submission/verified correction of non-compliance. Only 2 criteria have extra weight. 5-year cohort graduation has a weight of 1.5, and SPP/APR indicators 5 and 6 has a weight of 2.
So as you all know, as part of its system of general supervision, DESE must make annual determinations about each LEA's specific needs for technical assistance or intervention in special education. So DESE categorizes all districts into one of 4 statuses. So districts can either be identified as meets requirements, needs assistance, needs intervention, or needs substantial intervention. And these determinations are made using a rubric with 8 different criteria. So these criteria are split into 4 performance criteria and 4 compliance criteria. So we're not going to get into the details of the rubric now. We've covered that in previous webinars. But if you want to dig deeper into understanding that rubric, there are some resources that are available to you all on DESE's website. We'll make sure that we send those to you as a follow-up so that you have them handy. All that to say, for district received a determination status of needs assistance or needs intervention, you can use the criteria on this rubric to begin to see where you might want to focus some of your root cause analysis and improvement planning work. So that's going to bring us to our next section.
Slide text. Title: Technical Assistance Timeline for NI Districts.
Okay, we know that it's no small task to dig into these pieces. And so we want to make sure that you all have a combination of technical assistance and deliverables to help support you through the process. So like any good system of support, this one's going to be tiered to provide the right level of support to each district. So first, let's walk through the timeline for districts with the status of needs intervention.
Slide text. Title: Timeline for NI Districts. Text is a bulleted list of items in timeline format in 2 columns. The 2024 column of bullets are: Review Determination Status Resources. Allot 2% of SPED entitlement, quote, M-cubed, quote. September 2024. Submit 240 grant application. Attend October convening on root cause analysis. Conduct root cause analysis. December 2024. Submit root cause analysis to SPED Strategies. Attend SPED Strategies consult call. Draft action plan. The 2025 column of bullets are: Attend Jan convening on action planning. February 2025. Submit action plan to DESE. Amend 240 application. Begin action plan. March 2025. 2024-25 LEA determinations released. Attend consult call with SPED Strategies. Submit EOY final report to DESE.
All right, so on your screen, you'll see a timeline. You're going to actually receive this, as we mentioned, in document form. So you'll have this to reference, but we wanted to go ahead and walk it through with you all today. So in this timeline visual, you'll see that the gold circles represent activities, and the gold circles with a dot inside are on-site convenings. The blue circles represent deliverables. So all of the activities and deliverables in this timeline are required for needs intervention districts. The first step for needs intervention districts is to make sure that you've accessed the resources that we named earlier, right? So there's a recorded webinar, there's a quick reference guide, an FAQ. These are all on DESE's website, and we want to make sure that you fully understand your status, the criteria on which you're focusing, and the data behind it. So again, we'll make sure that we share these materials. Again, you can get on DESE's website and find them now, but we'll make sure that we follow up with a direct link if you haven't seen them already. You're also, as a needs intervention district, required to allot 2% of your special ed entitlement allocation to target and systemic improvement that's aligned with the criteria on which you're going to be focusing. Okay, this is all part of the Making Money Matter, or the M-Cube program, which is also, you can find more information about in that FAQ. A few districts have already asked us, they've reached out and asked about the need to make that allotment in the fall before really engaging in a lot of this technical assistance. And so, which, of course makes sense. You might have those questions. So for this year, you'll need to decide on those allotments by September 30th, as you always have, based on your current understanding of your data and your gaps, right? Later in the year, as you'll see in a minute, there's room in the timeline for you to go back and amend that allocation if you need to, based on what you've learned. So once districts have gone through all of this year's TA, we'll be able to align support so that they more fluidly align with your budget planning for following years. The first major support for needs intervention districts will come in October. So you should have already received a save the date email for a 2-day root cause analysis convening happening in one of 3 weeks in October. So our team at Sped Strategies will be facilitating these sessions. And here your team will get a chance to dig into the root causes for your district's determination and leave prepared to complete the process with a broader team following that session. So we just finalized the locations for each convening. So we'll be able to offer these sessions in 3 different locations across the state to make them more accessible to your teams. So look for an email with registration and location information for your convening, and be sure to get your team signed up. As you know, root cause analysis is not something that's done in a day. It's a process that's done over time with a team using various sources of data. Across the fall, each of your teams will complete your own root cause analysis, and then you'll have a chance to discuss one-on-one with our team what that entails. You'll send us your analysis, and we'll take time to review it and set up virtual consult calls to talk through it, answer questions, and provide any feedback and guidance as you move on to creating your action plan. Following that virtual consult, you'll receive a first draft. You'll create a first draft of your improvement plan, which you'll bring to our second convening of the year in January. At that one-day convening, we'll do a deep dive on improvement planning. You get to use that input to revise and finalize your own plan. And then by February, each needs intervention district will submit that plan to DESE so that they have a clear picture of your focus area, the steps you're taking, your rationale for the plan, and how you'll be measuring your progress. As I've mentioned before, at this point in the year, you've made some significant shifts in your thinking based on the root cause analysis and improvement planning work that we've done. And so you're going to be able to, at that point, amend your 240 application. Then you'll begin implementing your plan. Some of the steps will be changes you can make in the spring of 2025 to address some what we call low-hanging fruit and secure some early wins. Other steps will be laying the groundwork for longer-term portions of your plan that you'll begin later in the summer or fall. In March, DESE is going to be releasing the next set of determinations, and you'll want to review your plan in light of that information in case something new surfaces that you didn't catch in your data review and root cause analysis earlier in the year. Each needs intervention districts will attend one final consult call with our team to discuss your 24-25 status and your action plan, and make sure you feel confident in the approach that you've mapped out. Lastly, in June, you'll submit a final report to DESE sharing the work that you've done this year, the impact that you've seen to date, and the steps that are in place for the 25-26 school year. One quick note on this timeline before I pause for questions. We will be providing more information about the structure and the content of each of these deliverables during the convening. So you'll know what's involved in submitting your root cause analysis, for example, or your action plan, or your end of the year final report to DESE. So with that, we've gone through quite a bit. I want to go ahead and pause. You can always reach out for with questions after this webinar once you've had a time to look at this a little bit more closely. But in the meantime, I just wanted to pause and see if there's any questions that we can answer now before we move on to the process for our needs assistance districts. Feel free to either unmute or use the chat with any questions.
Good morning. I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
Would it, and this might happen at the convening, or well, I think that might be after the deadline. But I'm just, could you provide maybe an example of when you're submitting your 240 grant and you need to allot 2%, and for instance, let's say, I don't know, any of those areas in the rubric were the area that was, the cause to become a needing intervention. Could you just maybe give us an example of what might be then included in the 240 grant? So like, for instance, if this is the issue, you might have something like this, just to have some perspective of what you're looking for to be in that.
Holly, I'm happy to take a stab at this, but I know this is kind of what's happening behind the scenes with DESE. So I'll go ahead and give you a high level kind of response. And then Holly, please jump in and provide any clarification. So a lot of districts are grappling right now with graduation and dropout rate. When we look at the data, that seems to be an area where most districts are being flagged, and what's causing some districts to fall into this status. So I'll go ahead and use that as an example. So if you're looking at your graduation rate and know that that's an area that you might want to target for some improvement planning activities, then you might start thinking about more broadly the work that's happening in your district. and where you might want to supplement some additional energy resources, fiscal and financial resources to tackle that issue. So some districts might say, for example, we know that we need to provide some training for our CTE teachers on how they might be able to provide access to students with disabilities in CTE programming. And so we're going to allocate some funding to provide that training to our staff, because we know that that is right now a hypothesis or something that we are thinking might be an issue related to our students with disabilities being able to graduate with their non-disabled peers. So kind of taking a look at what might be some activities that could address whatever areas are showing up on your rubric as an area of concern, and being really targeted about how you might allocate or supplement some of the work that's happening to specifically address students with disabilities. Holly, I don't want to make an assumption that that was correct, so please jump in.
That's exactly correct. I would have said the same thing. Also, thinking just another example off the top of my head, if your district is grappling with attendance and things like that, possibly thinking about how you might add or augment what you're already doing, that it's specifically targeted to students with disabilities would be another example. Hope that's helpful.
That's great. Thank you very much.
I also see a question in the chat about exactly what we have included in this timeline around the timing of your next set of determinations. So as we mentioned, in March, you're going to be receiving a new set of data. And the question is specifically being hopeful here, right? That everybody, in the spring gets meets requirements determination that kind of bumps you out of this needs intervention status. How might that change the process? I think that's a great question. And those are things, Eric, that we will be talking with districts individually about in that final consult call in the spring. So if there is work that you are doing to improve the performance of students with disabilities, we would assume that the activities that you're identifying through these convenings, that the activities that you are planning for in subsequent years are going to have a longstanding impact, right? These are things that take time to show improvement, and we would hope that whatever improvement planning comes out of these convenings are things that can be carried out regardless of your status. However, there might be some things based on more recent data that you might want to tweak, right? There might be some things that change maybe the approach that your team originally kind of assumed based on the initial data set. And when your new determinations come out, you might want to look at those through a different lens. So that's something that we'll be helping you with in that final consult call. Great questions. Anything else I can answer before we move on to needs assistance? Awesome. All right. Again, feel free to reach out after the fact if questions come up. We want to make sure that you all have a clear understanding of what this next year is going to look like. Okay.
Slide text. Title. Technical Assistance Timeline for NA Districts.
So let's go ahead and move forward, and we'll talk through the timeline for districts with a status of needs assistance.
Slide text. Title. Timeline for NA Districts. Text is a bulleted list of items in timeline format in 2 columns. The 2024 column of bullets reads: Review Determination Status Resources. October 2024. Attend October convening on root cause analysis. Conduct root cause analysis. Draft action plan. The 2025 column of bullets reads: January 2025. Attend January convening on action planning. February 2025. Submit action plan survey to DESE. Begin action plan. March 2025. 2024 to 25 LEA determinations released. Review action plan and adjust for next year.
So, as I mentioned earlier, this is a tiered system of support. So the timeline for needs assistance districts is essentially a lighter version of what we just walked through for needs intervention. So additionally, while the convenings are highly recommended for needs assistance districts, they are not required. So as with the needs intervention districts, needs assistance districts should start by reviewing all of the available resources to ensure they understand the rubric and their determination status. Then there's a one-day root cause analysis convening designed specifically for needs assistance districts that you're invited to attend in October. Following that convening, your teams will go through the same process of conducting your root cause analysis, drafting your action plans, and as with the needs intervention districts, we'll make sure you leave that October convening with the resources, templates, and guides you need to complete that work independently. When you come back in January, you'll also have a one-day convening to help you improve and finalize your action plans. And then in February, instead of submitting a full action plan to DESE, like the needs intervention districts, you'll complete an action plan survey that shares similar information. All right, and this is going to help DESE to see the areas that needs intervention, or I'm sorry, needs assistance districts are focused on and the kinds of actions they're taking. And they will also provide a reference point that they can refer to if your team reaches out for individuals' questions or support. So as I mentioned before, we're gonna share the structure of that survey in these convenings so you'll know what it looks like and what information it entails. Of course, attending those convenings is going to help your team be more prepared for the survey and to complete that survey when it comes time to submit that to DESE. So once you submit that survey, you'll begin implementing your action plan. And then just as we talked about, you'll receive your 24-25 determination statuses in March. You can begin reviewing your action plan, adjusting as necessary to prepare for the following year. So let me go ahead and pause for a minute, see if there's any questions about this timeline before we talk about next steps. All right, well, let's go ahead and dig into those next steps then.
Slide text. Title. Next steps. Slide text. Title. Next steps. Text in a bulleted list. Review self-serve resources. Identify initial team members. Register your team for the convening.
Oh, oops, I see something in the chat. Let me make sure. The October dates. Yes, we do have the October dates, and they are in person. I'm going to see David's behind the scenes as I wrap up the next steps. I'm going to see if he can drop those dates in the chat. I just put him on the spot. If we are unable to get those before we wrap, okay, good. He's going to put those here in a second in the chat. You should have received a save the date. If you have not received a save the date, please let us know, because that might mean that we do not have your contact information and want to make sure that you're on the list to receive that correspondence. All right. Okay. So next steps. First, make sure that you review the resources that we discussed today if you haven't already. Again, you're going to receive those direct links in a follow-up to this call. The second thing you're going to want to do, depending on the size of your team, you're going to want to identify between 3 to 5 people that you know that you want on your team to be advancing this work. And we'll discuss in our October convening, you'll be expanding that team once you get back to your district to do the root cause analysis work. But for now, we just want you to find the 3 to 5 people that you know that you want driving this work from the very beginning. Once you know who those people are, you're going to register that team for your October convening. You're going to be receiving a registration email in the coming weeks. So the maximum team size for needs intervention districts is 5, but you should plan to have at least 3 people there. And you'll see some guidance in the registration about the types of roles that you'll want to include. So those are your main steps for right now. In advance of the convening, we'll reach out and kind of give you some pre-work to start thinking about your data so that when you come in, you'll be prepared to really dig in with your team. But for now, what we really want you to be focused on is identifying your team and getting them registered for the October convenings. Awesome. All right. Well, that is all that we have for you today. We will plan to stay on after the recording ends in case anyone has any final thoughts or questions or concerns. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you in October. Thank you guys so much.
Slide text. Title: Thank you.